Hello, hello, hello. My name is Robert. I am the recovery guy, and you have entered into The Fix.
So my name is Robert, and I'm a recovered alcoholic. It's good to be back here. I was the speaker here over Labor Day weekend, and that was exciting to be here. Oh, I got readings. Okay. Thank you, Robert. All right. Thank you, bro. I appreciate that. I told you I'm not a leader. I'm just a speaker. The leader of my family, her name is Laura. She also is my higher power. So. Yeah. So I admitted I was powerless over alcohol. My wife had become unmanageable, right? So that's good. So I've asked a friend to read a portion of chapter 3, more about alcoholism. Who's that friend?
My name is William.
Hey, William. Come on up.
William, I'm an alcoholic and an addict.
Hey, William.
All right. Chapter 3, more about alcoholism. More of us are unwilling to admit that we're real alcoholics. No person likes to think that he is bodily and mentally different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we can drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday, he will control and enjoy his drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into gates of insanity or death. We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholics. This is the first step in recovery. The delusion that we are like other people or presently may be has to be smashed. We alcoholics, men and women, have lost the ability to control our drinking. We know that no alcoholic ever recovers control, right? All of us felt at times that we are regaining control, but such interverts, usually briefs, were inevitable, followed by still less control, which led in times to pitfall and incomprehensible demoralizations. We are convinced to a man that alcoholics are in the gasp of a progressive illness. Over many considerable period, we get worse, never better. We are like men who lost their legs. They never grow new ones. Neither does there appear to be any kind of treatment which would make alcoholics of our kind like other men. We have tried every imaginable remedy. In some instances, they have been brief recoveries, followed always by a still worse relapse. Physicians who are familiar with alcoholism agree there is no such thing as making a normal drinker out of alcoholics. Science may one day accomplish this, but hasn't done it yet. Despite all we can say, many who are real alcoholics are not going to believe they're in that class. But every form of self-deception and self-examination, right? They will try to prove themselves exceptions to the rule. Therefore, non-alcoholics. If anyone who is showing an ability to control his drinking can do the right about face and drink like a gentleman, our hats off to them. Heaven knows we have tried hard enough and long enough to drink like other people. Here are some of the methods we have tried. Drinking beer only, limiting the number of drinks, never drinking alone, never drinking in the morning, drinking only at home, never having it in the house, never drinking during business hours, drinking only at parties, switching from scotch to brandy, drinking only natural wine, agreeing to reassign every drink on the job, taking a trip, not taking a trip, swearing off whatever, with and without a solemn oath, taking more physical exercise, reading in spiritual books, going to health farms and asylums, in sanitariums, accepting volunteer commitments to asylums who can increase the list of.
And now we have someone coming up to read How It Works, and then followed by the 12 traditions.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raymond. How It Works, Chapter 5. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed our path. Those who do not recover are people who cannot or will not completely give themselves to this simple program. Usually men and women who are constantly incapable of being honest with themselves. They are such unfortunates. They are not at fault. They seem to have been born that way. They are naturally incapable of grasping and developing a manner of living which demands rigorous honesty. Their chances are less than average. There are those too who suffer from grave emotional and mental disorder, but many of them do recover if they have the capacity to be honest. Our stories disclose in a general way that we used to be like, what happened, and what we are like now. If you have decided you want what we have and are willing to go any length to get it, then you are ready to take certain steps. At most of these we thought we could find an easier, softer way, but we could not. With all the earnestness at our command, we beg of you to be fearless from the very start. Some of us have tried to hold on to our old ideas, and the results was near until we let go absolutely. Remember that we deal with alcohol, cunning, baffling, powerful. Without help it is too much for us. But there is one who has all power. That one is God. May you find him now, half measured, available, us nothing. We stood at the turning point. We asked him protection and care with complete abandon. Here's the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. 1. We admit we were powerless over alcohol, that our lives had become unmanageable. 2. Come to believe that a power greater than ourselves could restore us to sanity. 3. Made a decision to turn our will and our lives over to the care of God as we understood him. 4. Made a searching and fearless moral inventory of ourselves. 5. Admit to God, to ourselves, and to other human beings the exact nature of our wrong. 6. We entirely ready to have God remove all these defects of characters. 7. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcoming. 8. Made a list of all persons who had harmed and become willing to make amends to them all over. 9. Make direct amends to such people whoever possible, except when to do so would injure them or others. 10. Continue to take personal inventory, and when we were wrong, properly admit to it. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation to improve our conscious contact with God, and we understood him, praying only for knowledge of his will for us and power to carry that out. 12. Having a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we try to carry this message to alcoholics and to practice these principles in our affairs. Many of us explain what in order. I can't go through with it. Do not be discouraged. No one among us has been able to maintain anything like perfect and adherence to this principle. We are not saints. This point is the point is that we are willing to grow along spiritual lines. The principles we have set down are guides to progress. We claim spiritual progress rather than spiritual perfection. Our description of the alcoholics, the chapter to the agnostic, and our personal adventure before and after make clear these three pertinent ideas: that we are alcoholics and could not manage our own lives. B, the probably no human power could have relieve our alcoholism. See that God could and would if He were solved.
And if you're reading the 12 traditions, come on, sponsor Slow Will is going to come up and share for us. So let me put these over here for right now. And as I've already stated, my name is Robert. I am a recovered alcoholic. My sobriety date is April 25th of 1986. That's right, long time, man. I've been sober 14,147 days in a row. And I was telling Jessica before the meeting, by the way, the pizza back there, Ralph, thanks for taking care of that. I love you like a son, and I mean that with all my heart, man. Yeah. Ralph and I became friends, and I never looked back. I told him tonight I'm his other sponsor. I just tell him that, and then whether or not he treats me that way, I don't know. But I love this club. I was brought up in Covina. That's where my alcoholism really took place, in Covina, in Azusa. I went to elementary school in Azusa, went to Valleydale Elementary, lived right across the street from Gladstone High School when Gladstone was still an orange grove. That's how far back I go. And you know, it was interesting. Then I was because we moved down from LA. I was raised on 3rd and Hill in downtown Los Angeles. And my dad worked on 7th and Alameda, so I'm really familiar with LA. And there's a degree of uncomfortability that so many of us have. It's why I'm so comfortable when I come into the rooms of Alcoholics Anonymous, and why I love this club. This club reminds me a lot of the Turning Point in Las Vegas, where I met Will back in '86. And, you know, we always wanted to feel like we were welcome somewhere. And I don't know where it was. It was after my relapse. I relapsed at 71 days. That's why my sobriety date is April 25th, not February 9th. I found it necessary to not work the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, to not be honest and go out and drink instead. And that's usually the choice. Rarely have we seen a person fail who has thoroughly followed a path. I obviously wasn't following the path. That's why I went back out. And so if you're new or relatively new to the program, you took a chip tonight, congratulations. Your last drink can be your last drink. It's up to you. If you work the 12 steps, get a sponsor, come to meetings, get in service, and do whatever your sponsor says, you have a chance at this thing. If you don't, you won't. I tell people all the time, I know why you relapsed. And it's not because I'm smart, because I read this book. You know, they said in the foreword to the first edition, we hope this book is so convincing that no further authentication will be necessary. And then in the doctor's opinion, it says the very same person who seemed doomed, who had so many problems he despaired of or solving any of them, now finds himself easily able to control his desire. The only requirement necessary is to follow a few simple rules. You know what my question was? What are the rules? What are the rules? Because if I go back out, I'm never coming back. I will die from a treatable condition. I will die from a treatable disease if I don't do what you tell me to do. And when I came back from my relapse on April 25th, 1986, I went to my sponsor, Max. I said, what do I do? He said, everything I say. I said, I'm in. Because in 5 days, I went from being sober to held up in a hotel room in Las Vegas on 15th and Fremont, wondering how the hell I got there in 5 days. I went from being employed, I memorized everything. I went from sounding sober to a hotel room in 5 days, wondering how I got there. And for me, the only alternative for me was to go back to Alcoholics Anonymous. There was no choice. Because in Las Vegas, you either learn how to swim. I tell people all the time, it's like learning how to swim in a shark tank. There is no door number 3. You either get sober or you go back on the streets and we never see you again because you're dead. You ever want to go on a 12-step call? Go on a 12-step call in Las Vegas. That'll scare the crap out of you. When you see a person who's been sober for 20 years and you go into their hotel room and they've been held up there a week and they got bottles everywhere, it smells like a bar at 5 in the morning that hasn't been cleaned, that's our disease. That's alcoholism, drug addiction. And if you think you have another drunk in you. You may. You probably do. But do you have another recovery in you? Can you ever make it back to those rooms? Are you willing to roll those dice? What is it? Will tells me all the time, Bobby, the easier, softer way is the steps. So if you think you can find an easier, softer way, then do whatever your sponsor says. Get into the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. And one of my favorite pages of the big book, and I carry my big book wherever I go, especially when my sponsor's here, because he kicked my butt if he thought I showed up at a meeting without a big book. It says, most of us have been unwilling to admit we were real alcoholics. No person likes to think he is bodily and many different from his and different from his fellows. Therefore, it is not surprising that our drinking careers have been characterized by countless vain attempts to prove we could drink like other people. The idea that somehow, someday he will control his desire for drinking is the great obsession of every abnormal drinker. The persistence of this illusion is astonishing. Many pursue it into the gates of insanity or death. It's an obsession I have that I want to drink like a normal person. I don't understand the disease model. I don't understand that there's something different about me. There's something different about my DNA. And I don't know what it is medically. I know, though, that if I ever drink alcohol again, and I'm 38 years, 8 months, and 24 days sober. If I ever drink again, you will probably never see me again. Because the disease of alcoholism, and don't test me on this, just trust me on this, the disease of alcoholism is a progressive disease. I wouldn't start out as if I've never drank. I would quickly get to where I would have been had I never stopped drinking. Could you imagine how frightening that is? Even the young man who's 60 days, Anthony, right? 60 days sober today. Could you imagine what it would be like as if you wouldn't, how much more you would be drinking today than you were 60 days ago, or 6 months ago, or 6 years ago? That's frightening. When you would add that, and you get there in a relatively short period of time. If you've ever seen someone who's relapsed, who's got some time, they're dead real quick. You rarely see them, and if you see them, they look like they were hit by a train. And in actuality, they were just hit by a bottle, hit by a needle, hit by a pipe. They were hit, and they'll never be the same. And I don't want to be that person. But the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous teaches me that I can get well, that I recover from a seemingly hopeless state of mind and body. My body was never hopeless. It just seemed that way. There was something about me that at 14 years old, I needed to escape how I felt about me and how I thought you felt about me. And somebody asked us today, Will and I spent the last 2 days in the treatment center and just talking to some men and women. They asked, did I become alcoholic on the first drink? The answer is no. But by the second drink, you bet your ass. Because I remembered what it was like the first drink. I remembered that I came from nothing, and I wasn't nothing, and I was always going to be a nothing. And when I took that first drink, it made me an almost. And when you come from nothing and you are nothing, you're always going to be a nothing. Almost is the best you're ever going to get, and that was where I wanted to be. So I spent from 14 to 18 years old trying to recapture that feeling of being an almost. And by the time I was 18 years old, I walked into the registrar's office because I went to Northview High School in Covina. And between my junior and senior year, we moved up to Corvallis, Oregon. And if you ever consider moving to Oregon, don't do it. Just a thought. Oregonians, they're a different breed, man. They're a whole different cat. And they hate Californians. So don't even tell them if you moved there. Just don't tell them you're from California. They'll hate you for other reasons as well. So I go into the registrar's office January 3rd of 1972. You know what was magical about that day? I turned 18 years old. And guess what? No one could tell me what to do anymore. So I went into the registrar's office. Now, granted, I was going to graduate from high school in May. This is where I know I needed to be restored to sanity because I was freaking nuts. Anyone who runs their life the way I do, I need to turn it over to a power greater than myself because my life was run by an idiot, and that was me. And so I went into the registrar's office and I said, I'm dropping out of school. They said, no, you can't. I said, I can do anything I want to. And in Japan, they have a phrase, first a man takes a drink, then the drink takes a drink, then the drink takes a man. And at 18 years old, alcohol was beginning to take me places I would have never gone had I not felt like an almost. And I liked it. And I liked it a lot. And by the time I was 26 years old, I was completely out of the equation of whether or not I drank, or how much I drank, or when I drank. I lost jobs, I lost wives, I lost every family member who meant anything to me, and I was a wreck. And then I'd already moved to Las Vegas. I wouldn't get sober for 6 more years. So my fall in Las Vegas was like, I tell people it was a fender bender turned into a full head-on collision. It was like having the elevator shaft. You know when you're free fall, you ever see those movies with the elevator shaft, the elevator car is free falling? And that was me. Because Las Vegas accelerated my timeline. I was living in Covina, moved to Las Vegas, and bam, that was it. That was the end of my first marriage. That was the end of everything. Within 2 years, I would walk out on my daughters. And I started selling drugs like I'd never sold before. They were good drugs, by the way. None of the street crap. And I want to tell you that I was drinking top level scotch, but it was probably bar scotch, all I could afford at the time. And I began to lose jobs. My life began to fall apart. The wheels were coming off of everything that was left of me. And the only place for me to go was Alcoholics Anonymous. And fortunately, the day on February 9th of 1986, I looked in the mirror and I was 32 years old and I was going to die. And there was nothing I could do about it. Remember that feeling? Where you just know you're going to die and you're no longer in the equation because you know you can't stop drinking, you can't stop using. And fortunately, I went into treatment that day. I wasn't ready to tell you I was alcoholic, but I was ready to look in the yellow pages under alcoholism. I had no job, I had no money, I had no insurance. Fortunately, the Nevada Treatment Center said, we'll take you. You just have to get here within 1 hour with $50 and we'll talk to you. I called up my dad who had been sober a number of years at the time, said, Dad, if I can get $50 and if I show up, they will talk to me. My dad, the greatest thing he ever did, never showed up for basketball games, never showed up for anything, but he showed up in that moment. And he took me to the Nevada Treatment Center. And that was the beginning of my journey. Fortunately, in detox where I was, there were men and women who were already going to AA. And they knew where to take me. They were giving me a warm bed and they feed me, but they knew where I needed to get well. And they introduced me to guys like Will and Texas Mike and Fast Eddie and Buddy Chambers and Pete the Greek, Jack Fisher, Abe the Plumber. They introduced me to Russian Ted, which is a crazy cat altogether. And you know what? And these were men who were already sober, who knew and who loved me. And you know what the amazing thing is? And I'll close with this. The more we know about you, the more we want you to come back. Isn't that crazy? Because we come from a place, the more we know about you, we know we don't want you to come back. We're convinced. The more we know, the more convinced we are. And we finally stop saying, no, I don't think you fit. AA was the only place a broken person like me would fit. And the more you knew about me, you'd say, well, you're really sick, man. You need to, if anyone needed to come back, it's you. And you know when I got well? Because I talked to some people who took me to the 10th step. And they said, this is what it can be. If you do what we say, this is what you can have. And they sort of teased me. It's like showing me dessert before the main course is there. I want that dessert. And for me to get the dessert, I need to eat a full meal, right? Like I'm a child. And I was a child. You had to guide me. You had to take me. You had to say to me, if you're willing to concede to your innermost self that you're alcoholic, then you're ready to take the first step, right? Admitted we were powerless over alcohol, that our life had become unmanageable. It was only when I began to take the 12 steps of Alcoholics Anonymous that my life began to transform. I no longer needed alcohol or drugs. I was still crazy, still a little insane, still thought I was my own higher power, but even that changed over time. And then when I relapsed and I came back, Will became the friend that he is today. I didn't have a place to live. I was homeless. And Will said, I got a couch. I have a rule that says I carry the message, I don't carry the alcoholic. But there's something about you that is going to let you stay. And my life was never the same. And I hope it is the same for you. I hope that you find a reason to stay, because out there, it'll kill you. But in here, you can have a life that you never imagined you'd have. And I hope to see you all again. Thank you for letting me share. Don't go anywhere. All right. So if I talk too long, I'll cry, because I honestly do love this man. So I'm going to give him his 45-year chip. He's given me a number of chips. Sometimes he sends them to me. Matter of fact, I think we came through here when I took my 30-year.
I think so.
Yeah, and anyway, if it wasn't for this man, I wouldn't be here. Because he gave me a couch instead of a curb. He gave me a home where he loved me and he fed me and he made sure I got off my feet. But more importantly, he is probably as responsible. There's only one other man who was my sponsor for 33 years that was as responsible for my sobriety than this man right here. So Will, I love you. Happy 45th, baby.
I want you all to do me a favor. I'm going to let him pass this around over here. Do a little love and prayer on it for me. That's what we do. But don't keep it. They're right. That's what we do in beautiful Branson, Missouri. And, 35? 35 minutes? I can knock it out in 40. Yeah. I'm Slow Will, a happy, grateful, recovered alcoholic. Clean and sober today by the grace of God in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, and for that I'm extremely grateful. And I'll talk quick because I've only got 35 minutes. But, That's good. I like that better. But, my drinking career started at a young age. I was born, I was 10 pounds, 9 ounces, and I was a big baby, and by the time I was 5 months old, I was down to 5 pounds. And I was losing weight, couldn't gain weight, and the doctor told my parents, you need to either give them goat's milk, which has a lot of enzymes in it, or give them beer with everything that you feed to them, because beer had a lot of enzymes in it. So they started giving me beer with my formula and stuff, and I started gaining my weight back. And as I started, okay, we got to take a break now, I got to eat some cake. Just kidding, people. I can wait. I'm not that addicted to cake. Yes, I am. Okay, set this off to the side so I don't have to sit there and stare at it. Sugar addict, drinking diet sodas. That's the way I work. They told me these things neutralize any sugar you get in an AA meeting. I believe them. Doctor said so. But so I started gaining my weight back, and I kept on gaining it, and I'm still gaining it. And life is better, But I drank. My first drunk in public was at 11 over in beautiful San Dimas, if you know where that's at. I was escorted. I was down off of Billow Drive and Glenstone, which is at the bottom of the hill, and I was drinking, and it was railroad tracks. The 57 freeway, is it? That wasn't there yet. The 210 wasn't in yet. That was all orange groves. And we lived in a cul-de-sac on Billow, and we were down there drinking in the orange grove. We got the town drunk, and we're 11 years old, 12 years old, 10 years old. There's 5 or 6 of us. And we're drinking Bali High wine mixed with Colt 45 beer, because we had heard about mixed drinks. Parents always talked about mixed drinks at their party. You drink a half a gallon of Bali High wine, and then you pour Colt 45 beer in with the other half, and shake it up a little bit, and then drinking. Not recommended. Make you want to quit drinking at 11 years of age, because we did that, and there was 5 or 6 of us, and we're drunk, and I'm walking back home with 5 or 6 guys, and we got a big long stick, and there's 3 on each end, and I'm sort of standing in the middle, and I look ahead of me, and here comes this cop car's coming at us. You know, we're 10 and 11 and 12-year-old kids. That's 11. Yeah. These cop cars are coming at us, and as they're coming at us, I look around like this, and there's nobody on either end of the pole except for me standing in the middle of the road. I'm 2 houses away from my house. And the cop comes up, and he puts me in the car. He handcuffs me in front, and he says, "You're not supposed to be drinking, you're going to jail." I said, "Can't you just take me over to my house? My mom's home. She'll whoop my ass and put me to bed." He says, "No, we're taking you to jail." So the cops took me to jail. We're going up Gladstone. If you know anything about Gladstone and San Dimas, when you go from down by the little store and you go up over the hill, it's a good climb. And we're going up over the hill, and I tell this cop, I says, "I don't feel good." And he says, "You're okay, you're just drunk." I said, "No, I'm sick." He said, "No, you're just drunk." And it proceeded to be a case of projectile vomiting over the back of the front seat, onto the cop, onto the paperwork, the radio, the dash, and he didn't like me for that. I have no idea why. But I made it to jail at 11 years of age. Cops called my mom up, and we had the big old black phones that were heavy, about 50-pound phones, and he called my mom up, and he says, "Mrs. Kessler, do you have a son named Willoughby?" And she says, "Yes." And he says, "No, you don't. We have him now." And then hung up on her. And when he put the phone down, it went down with a click. And when it went down with a click, she got instantly pissed. She came down to rescue me. No. She came down, she opened the doors at San Dimas Sheriff Substation, pulled the doors open, walked up to the desk, looked at the sergeant behind the desk and says, "Don't you ever freaking hang up on me like that again." Which meant she knew this was going to happen a few more times. You know, but she started yelling at him for hanging up on her. She says, "Give me my son and I'll take him home." And they did that, and she took me home, and I took a bath, and I went to bed, and I got up the next morning, and I got my ass whooping, which I got every time. But that didn't stop me from drinking, you know, and I continued drinking. And what's amazing is most of my drinking career, there was a guy here, you all know that he passed away, I think last March, Greg. He was one of my drinking buddies back in the 60s and 70s. And he was the only person that I drank with that I've ever seen come through the doors of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, and it sort of hit me when I came in here yesterday and found out that he'd passed away. It hit me harder than Alberta passing away. And I've known Alberta for 45 years, because she was here at my first meeting. You know, and so I drank my way through high school, junior high school, elementary school, and I didn't wait till I was 18. I dropped out at 17. I was not too far from graduating. I was a smart kid, but I didn't want to go to school anymore, so I didn't like the rules and regulations at home. So what do you do if you don't want to live at home at 17? Join the Marine Corps.
Hell yeah.
Yeah. I don't like rules and regulations, so I'm going to join the Marine Corps. Good alcoholic thinking. I didn't plan on becoming a Marine. I went down to the recruiting station, which was down by Indian Hill Mall down there, and there was a recruiting station that had Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marine Corps. And when you walked in, there was a horseshoe-shaped booth, and I was sitting in that booth. And this Army guy walked by me, and he goes, "How you doing today?" And I said, "Pretty good." And he walked into his office, and some Navy guy walked by and says, "How you doing today?" I said, "Oh, not too bad." He walked in, and here comes this sharp-looking guy, dressed blues, red stripe down the side, fancy jacket, nice black brimmed hat, He comes walking up to me as he walks through, and he looks at me and he goes, "Can I help you with something?" And I said, "Yeah, I'm here to enlist." And he said, "Well, I can help you with that." And he took me into his office and we talked for about 10 minutes. He says, "You're going to have to get a signature from a parent or guardian." I said, "My mom's been waiting out in the car for 30 minutes to come in here and sign papers." She came in, she signed the papers. He says, "We'll pick you up in 10 days to take you to boot camp." And I said, "Okay." And that was October 14th, 1971. And I found out the reason the Marine Corps would take high school dropouts and nobody else would was the Marine Corps wanted bodies that were willing to go over to Vietnam and carry guns and run through jungles and do stupid stuff like that. Crawl in little caves and, drop hand grenades down on the Viet Cong. It was like, I really didn't want to do that kind of stuff. So I showed my smartness and I became a heavy equipment operator. And I drank my whole way through 4 years of the Marine Corps. And I got out. What was amazing was I went in a private, I got out of private. But I got out of private on paper. My paperwork said E3 because I paid a guy in the office $50 to change it from a 1 to a 3. So I got out an E3 with no stripes on my sleeves, and I had my Good Conduct Medal, my National Defense, my Vietnam Service Medal, no Vietnam conflict because we weren't in country, we were on board ship getting drunk all the time. Navy didn't like us because we stayed drunk. And so after 4 years of the Marine Corps, I was done with it. I had succeeded in not getting thrown out of the Marine Corps. So I got out of the Marine Corps October 24th because I had 10 days bad time. So I went in on the 14th and I had to do my 10 days bad time, which put me to the 24th of October 1975 when I got out. I was just barely 21 years of age. And I decided, okay, I'm going to do nothing but run around the country and party. At least till my money runs out in the bank, which was a few $100. But you didn't need much back in 1975 to run around and party because everybody hitchhiked cross country, everybody shared their dope, everybody shared their alcohol. You'd go to somebody's house and stay there for 2 or 3 days, move on to somebody else's house. So I did that kind of stuff. And, it lasted for about 2 years. I traveled around the country, hitchhiked back and forth 5 times from North Carolina to California and up to Sioux City, Iowa, and down to Miami Beach, Florida, and, just hitchhiking around the country, drinking, using drugs, and doing nothing else. And, I did it, and it was fun for a while. But eventually the fun ran out, and I was doing it out of necessity because I had no place permanent to go to. I didn't have a family anymore. I'd burnt all the bridges that I could burn. Mom didn't want me coming over to the house unless Mom and Dad were there because she didn't trust me. Dad didn't trust me. My sisters, I stole from my sisters, my grandmother. I was a thief. When I got to the program of Alcoholics Anonymous, I like to say that I was a liar, a cheater, and a thief. And I got sober and I stole better grades of the stuff that I was stealing. Because I'm here to tell you, you can come into this program, walk through these doors, pick up a big book, grab a sponsor, and not work these steps. You don't need to work these steps to stay sober, people. You don't need to work the steps. And 45 years, and I'm telling you that. You're going to be miserable. You're going to be angry. You're going to be full of hate and guilt and remorse and everything else as long as you don't work the steps. But I was in and out. I was coming in through this door, and I was staying sober, and I was going to jail. I went to jail 10 times in my first 5 years of sobriety because I chose to work the program the way I wanted to work the program. January, and I got here December 15th, 1979. I walked through the doors. Maybe the 16th, maybe the 14th. I got old since then and don't remember. But it was right around the 15th because I know I had 2 weeks of sobriety. And a friend of mine called me up and he says, "Hey, you want to go to the Rose Parade?" And this is the day, this is New Year's Eve. And he says, "Want to go to the Rose Parade?" I said, "Sure, I've never seen it sober." He says, "Cool." He says, "Come pick us up over at the house." Well, they needed my car is why they invited me. And they had a safe, sober driver. That's cool too. So we're going down the road and I didn't, they handed me this little bitty old wooden pipe. And you slide it open and there's weed in there, and they pulled it open, pinched a little bit of weed into the bowl, and they handed me this pipe. They says, "Try this." I said, "I don't need that. I'm doing good. I'm sober." They says, "But you're not drinking. You never had a problem with weed." I says, "I know I didn't. I didn't like it. But I smoked it. And I took a hit or two. It gave me a little bit of a buzz. But then it also gave me cotton mouth. And when you're driving down the road and there's 5 guys in a little Datsun station wagon with an ice chest, there's not a whole bunch of room for soda pop in the ice chest. I says, "Give me something to drink," and they passed me up to Budweiser. And when it hit my hand, I felt the coldness, and I looked at it and I said, "I don't like beer." And one of my friends, my best buddy in the world, looks at me and he goes, "I got you covered." And he pulls out a little bottle of Bacardi 151 rum.
Yeah, baby.
That was my drink of choice. And it was ice cold out of the cooler, and I picked it up and tipped it back. And that was at about 6 o'clock New Year's Eve. About 7 o'clock, about 6:30, we finally made it out to Colorado Boulevard, found a parking space. By 11 o'clock that night, I was sitting in my mom's living room in Pomona, California, with a black eye, a split lip, 2 parking tickets in my damn car, and I'm going, how the hell did I get here? New Year's Day, I woke up in the morning watching the Rose Parade that I was there to watch. I'm watching it on this little bitty TV in my mom's living room going, what the hell happened? Mom says, "Well, you came in last night about 11:15, turned the TV on for 30 seconds or so, fell over backwards giggling, and we just threw the blanket over you and left you there." And I said, "Oh, it was a rough night that I didn't even make it through the night." And, what was amazing about that is January 1st, I come damn near physically crawling back through the front door of Alcoholics Anonymous right here. And that used to be a coffee bar out there. Now I'll tell you a little real quickie about how I found the club here. I got to AA by accident. I was in Laverne, I was riding a stolen 10-speed bicycle that I stole from my neighbors because I stole it from them every day. Because I needed a ride to get up to the club, I needed a ride to do this, I didn't have a car at that time. And I was riding this stolen bicycle in mid-July up to Laverne. And then I got drunk up there and I was riding it back. But in July it's hot in Pomona, California. No kidding. And I'm coming down White Avenue and I see on the side of the building there, big circle with a triangle, and then it says Triangle Club on it. And I thought, I've been thrown out of Walter Mitty's down in Westmont, I've been thrown out of the Cave, I've been thrown out of the place up there on Foothill Boulevard that used to look like a castle. Friar Tuck's, the one across from it. I've been thrown out of all these places. I says, I've never been thrown out of this club. So I wobbled in here with the stolen bicycle, leaned it up against the post, walked in. There was a coffee bar in that room that's Al-Anon now. And I walked up to this little blonde at the coffee bar. She was an old lady. She was at least 40. And I was 25 at the time, so I could say that. And I looked at her and I says, I've only got about 50 cents. Can I get a draft? And she says, "We don't sell beer here." I'm thinking 50 cents is not going to buy a shot. And she says, "But we sell soda and coffee. And there's a guy here, he'll tell you a little bit about this club." And a guy that's on the wall here somewhere, he turned around and he started talking to me. He bought me a soda and he bought me a sandwich and he started talking to me about this club. And, this is in July. I'm still 6 months away from getting sober. And he told me about this AA club thing, and after about 30 minutes, 40 minutes of being 12-step, I got tired of it, and I says, this place is fine for you to people that need it. I says, but I got to go home, get to my dad's refrigerator before he gets home, because he'll drink all of his beer, and I needed a few of them. So I got on that bicycle and I rode away from here. Never planned on coming back, you know, and mid-December 1979, I called my sister up and I said, I'm done. She worked at a pizza place in Diamond Bar. And I called her up and I said, I'm done. I can't do this anymore. I'm not having any fun. I had just recovered from gunshot wound to my upper thigh. Because when you're drunk and you have a loaded gun, don't stick it in your waistband. And, you know, hairpin trigger, reach down, pull it out, and it went in here and it come out just above the knee. They carted me off to LA General Hospital because I had no insurance for Pomona Valley. So I got out of the hospital and I was back home, and I was drinking the day I got back home. And I called my sister up. I said, can't do this anymore. And she says, okay, let's talk about it. She says, come up and get me. And then she says, wait, you've been drinking, haven't you? I says, yeah, I'm drunker than hell and I'm in my apartment. And she says, I'll take off work and come and get you. So she left the pizza place in Diamond Bar, came down on Mission Boulevard, right next to the little taco stand there, and there's a little bar and stuff next to the 7-Eleven there. And she came and she got me, and she says, let's go get some coffee. 11 o'clock at night, I said, let's go get some coffee. We got on the freeway and went over to Glendora, where I wouldn't be seen drunk. And we went over to Glendora to Denny's at Grand Avenue and the 210 freeway, and we sat there. Well, we were talking, and she had mentioned that my uncle had gotten sober through AA. This is the first thing I'd ever heard about this. And I said, well, maybe AA might work for me. So I went over and pulled a phone book off the wall in their little phone booth, opened it up, and found AA in the white pages. A. And it had a number, and it was for central office in Covina. And I tore the page out and stuck it in my pocket. And I told my sister I was going to call them tomorrow when I was a little more sober. What was amazing was tomorrow came and I called them. And they says, there's a meeting at the Triangle Club. Here's the number of the Triangle Club. I called the Triangle Club and they said, we have a meeting here at noon. Would you like us to send a couple guys out to get you? I said, no, I think I'm sober enough to drive. And I came over and I walked in through these doors mid-December 1979. You know, and that was when I decided that this program was going to be for me. And I tried it one more time New Year's Eve, and I came back in. And, you know, when I came back in and I got another 24-hour chip, my soon-to-be wife / now one of my ex-wives, she was here. And she was one of them that came up and gave me a hug and said, welcome back. John Kay was here. He came up and gave me a handshake and a hug, and he says, welcome back. Ron Seeker was here. And I can use these last names because, you know, they blew their own anonymity, you know. And all these guys and girls came up and gave me hugs and said, welcome back. Not a one of them looked at me and said, oh, no, you screwed up, you know, and no, we don't want anything to do with you. I was welcomed back with open arms, whether I had 2 weeks of sobriety or whether I had 20 years. They didn't chase people away. We don't shoot our wounded in the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, this is the best thing that's ever happened to me, and if you stick around, it's the best thing that's ever happened to any of you. You know, I've had a blast in sobriety. We used to take a group, we'd have like John Kay had a motorhome, Ron Seeker had a motorhome, we all had little beat up travel trailers and stuff, and we had this thing we did every year, and it was called the Baja Ha Ha Campout. And we'd pack up these vehicles, and I'd have my 5 kids with me, and as somebody else would have 4 kids with them, and we'd take off and we went down to San Felipe in Baja, Mexico. And we had a week-long party down there on the beach. And that's what we did for fun. We went to the beach trips, and Hal Watson had his birthday on the beach every year. You know, and we had potlucks and we had dances in here. You know, that was the fun and sobriety that kept me coming back, kept me enjoying life, because I didn't enjoy it when I was out there drinking and using in the end. The fun had run out. Like I was talking to somebody earlier, John Kay used to say it. I drank the last giggle out of the bottle. There was nothing left, and so I got me a sponsor and I started working the steps. And, I didn't work them very well. I worked them in my order in my first 5 years. Like I say, I went to jail 10 times. I got out of jail January 1st, 1985. And a friend of mine met me at the door, and he rode with the motorcycle club. And he walks up to me at the door of San Bernardino County Jail, and he goes, "Hi, Will, and I'm John, and I'm an alcoholic." And I looked at him and I says, "I've known you for 3 years of my 5 years of sobriety." I says, "I know who you are." I says, and he goes, "I'm your sponsor." And I says, "No, you're just a friend." He said, "No, I'm your sponsor." He says, "I think you're ready to start working the steps." I said, "Yeah, I think I'm ready." He said, "No." He says, "You're ready." And we sat down. We went to his house, which was right over on Orange Grove, and we walked through the door, and he opened it up to page 165, which is real close to where I'm at now, and he grabbed the book, and he ripped it right down the spine at page 164. And when he ripped it down the spine, he took the right hand and he tossed it over in the corner of his living room. He handed me the left side and he says, "This is what you need. You need the first 164 pages of this book are going to change your life if you work them the way they're laid out in this book." And we started going through the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. He says, "We're going to work the steps according to the big book." And we started working the steps, and we started reading the big book, and we read the preface to the first edition, and the forward to the second edition, and all of this stuff, and the doctor's story, the doctor's opinion and stuff. And then we got into the other stuff, chapter 1, Bill's story. And then we got going on that, and we got to page 30, and he says, "Okay, we're going to stop here." And I said, "Okay, why are we going to stop there?" And he says, "This is the point that's going to change your life." Well, what I had been doing is I had been coming into these meetings and I had been lying to every one of you people. And I convinced every one of you people. Because I walked in here and I said, "I'm Slow Will and I'm an alcoholic." And I had a smile on my face. I had a wife. I had a ready-made family. I had 4 kids at the time. And I said, "Yeah, everything's great. I'm Slow Will and I'm an alcoholic." And everybody said, "Hi, Slow Will." We stopped on page 30. And he says, "Will," he said, "what's that line right there?" And on page 30, look at that, it's right here. It says, "We learned that we had to fully concede to our innermost selves that we were alcoholic. This is the first step in recovery." I had not conceded to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. That's why I kept doing the same stupid shit that I was doing, and going to jails, and getting into trouble, and getting married, and getting divorced, and getting businesses bankrupted, because I was still doing the same stupid stuff. Because I hadn't conceded to my innermost self that I was an alcoholic. He says, "Are you an alcoholic, Will?" I says, "I might be." He says, "No." He says, "Are you an alcoholic?" He says, "Because we're going to sit here and go back and forth on this question till you give me the right answer." And I looked at him and I said, "Yeah." I says, "I'm an alcoholic." He says, "Well, say it like you mean it. Take pride in it." I says, "I'm an alcoholic. And I believe that I'm an alcoholic and that alcohol is what's been ruining my life." And he said, "Okay, let's move on." And he started working the steps with me. We worked steps 1 through 9 in 14 days. That's all it took. 14 days of being together, worked 1 through 9. We got to step 10 and he says, "You there?" And I was thinking, okay, maybe I graduate or something. He says, "Nope." He says, "You're there." He says, 10, 11, or 12 are real simple. You just have to do them every day of your life for the rest of your life if you want to maintain sobriety. I call them my maintenance steps. Somebody else calls them something else. But, I maintain my sobriety by working 10, 11, or 12 on a daily basis. I've got a little notepad on my nightstand at the house in Missouri, and if I owe somebody an amends when I go to bed, I write it down there. If I owe, if I got overpaid at Walmart by $5 when I got my cash back, if they overpaid me, I got to take them $5 back tomorrow. I write that down. Take Walmart $5 back. And I have to do that, and I have to make them amends immediately, or as soon as possible, because I can turn around and I can say, well, I don't need to take Walmart $5 back, and that'll eat at me for 3 or 4 days. Then really, it's only $5. Walmart rips off everybody for hundreds of thousands of dollars, millions of dollars a year. They ain't worried about my $5. I can justify this. Eventually that $5 is going to cost me my life because I'm going to drink over it. And it's like I told Bobby, and I've told a lot of people over the years. I was taught I have to do the 12th step or the 10th step. The 10th step is clear away the wreckage of my past. And what I like to say, or clear away the wreckage of my present so that it doesn't become wreckage of my past. And the way that works out is if I don't give them that $5 back, I get drunk over that, I'm going to have to go back through the big book, a new big book, because my sponsor told me. He says, if you ever go back out, you got to get you a new big book because the one you got don't work. He says, you got to get yourself a new sponsor because the one you got don't work. Get some new phone numbers in your phone because the ones you're calling or not calling don't work. He says, so you do that, and then you turn around and so you clear away the wreckage of your present. It's like, and I tell the newcomers at meetings in Missouri, that's the candy wrappers that you dropped on the floor, the soda bottle that you may have dropped on the floor, cookie crumbs, get the vacuum the carpet, that kind of stuff. That's clearing away the wreckage of your present. Because you got that wreckage of your past. It's going to drive you out and drink. You're going to have to do another 4th step. Oh, yeah. I'm 45 years sober, and I've done 1 4th step. 1 4th step. I don't have to do a 4th step every day. I don't have to do a 4th step every month or every year. My sponsor told me, he says, you do a 4th step one time. Real quick analogy, I've still got a few minutes. Real quick analogy on my taking the steps was I learned. He said, you take some M&Ms, a big bowl of M&Ms, and you set them over here. And you put 1 down. And then next to it, you put 2 down. Next to it, you put 3 down. All the way up to 9. And then when you get to 9, you slide that big old bowl over next to the 9. And then you turn around and you get to that first M&M, and it tells you right here. And bear with me. I get lost in this book sometimes. What page is the steps on?
Page 30. Page 59.
59. That shows you how smart I am, huh?
Page 60.
I was told not to memorize the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Because if you memorize the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, you don't ever have to reopen it again. Amazing. I do. The line right above the 12 steps, talking about the M&Ms. Here are the steps we took, which are suggested as a program of recovery. That first M&M, step 1, it's gone. Okay? Step 2, 2 M&Ms. Take them, they're gone. Can I go back and take step 1 again? Ain't none there. I got to move on. I got to move forward. I got to stay in a continuous motion of being forward in my program. Otherwise, I'm slipping back. So I got to take 3 M&Ms all the way up to 9. And then he turns around and he tells me, he says, okay, when you get to that big old bowl at the end, you got them 9 steps out of the way. We can't take. We can't take them again. We took them steps. If you did it right and you did it by the big book and you took them steps, you don't ever have to take them again, according to my sponsor and according to me, because I believe it today. But you get to step 10. Oh, yeah. That's the big old bowl of M&Ms. You can just grab a handful and eat them all you want because it's never ending. That's the way my God works. I got never ending M&Ms. You know, continued to take personal inventory. And when we were wrong, promptly admitted it. Doesn't say maybe we're going to take an inventory and we'll admit it tomorrow or the next week. Continued. The maintenance steps. Something I have to do. I have to continue to do that for the rest of my life. 11. Sought through prayer and meditation. I have to pray and meditate every day. Because what I'm searching for, being a spiritual entity that I am, I'm searching for a closer conscious contact with God as I understand Him. Well, sought and searching are basically the same word. You know, I'm not too good on grammar, but I'm pretty sure that sought and searching are basically the same word. And searching is a continuation. I have to continue searching. You know, and then you get to step 12. After all of the other ones, having had a spiritual awakening as the result of these steps, we tried to carry this message to alcoholics and practice these principles in all our affairs. You know, that carrying the message, that's a continuation step. And by working 10, 11, and 12 every day, I'll be working it tonight before I go to bed in the motorhome. 10, 11, and 12 every night. You know, and life gets better. You know, and still got a couple minutes. I'm doing good. Still got a couple minutes. And if I go to, now I'll tell you a little bit about my favorite pages of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, which is 164 of them. But if I go to page 132 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, I don't even really need to look at it to tell you. But if you go to page 132 of the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous, line, telling me to shut up? Okay, just a warning. If you go to line 17 of page 132 in the Big Book, when you get home, you can write it down. Line 17. There's 16 lines above it. There's 16 lines below it. Dead center in that page. For some reason, God put it there. There's a line in the middle of that says, we absolutely insist on enjoying life. Absolutely insist on enjoying life. And I thought that was just good enough. I insisted. I told God, I says, I don't want any negativity in my life. We're going to enjoy life for the rest of my life. And God said, okay, you just got to do a few things. Like 10, 11, and 12. Real simple. But what somebody pointed out to me not too many years ago, I thought I knew about everything that I could learn in the Big Book of Alcoholics Anonymous. Till he turned around and he said, Will, look at that line. And I looked at it and he said, that's your favorite line? I said, yeah. He said, what's the first 2 words of that sentence? And I says, oh, we absolutely. He said, no, the words before that sentence. And there's 2 words before it and it says wanted. Unless you want this program, it's not going to work for you. And he pointed that out to me. He says, you have to want it for it to work. And I could understand that. And I said, yeah, I got to want it. And I want it. I want everything Alcoholics Anonymous has to offer me. But you get to the end of that, and it says, we try. And I was explaining it over there at Cedar House today. If I tried, I'd be drunk tomorrow. If Bobby tried, he'd probably be drunk with me tomorrow. Because I can't do this, he can't do this. None of these say I or me. Everything on there is a we program. We have to do this together. That's why they say get a sponsor. Work the steps with a sponsor. Because working the steps by yourself ain't going to do a damn bit of good. Because you already know everything about you. But you've got to share it with somebody else. You've got to share it with God. You know, and you think, oh, God knows everything. Well, yeah, but you need to share it with him anyways. Because God, sometimes he forgets. He's getting older. You know, but, and then on page 133, my next favorite line is, we are sure that God wants us to be happy, joyous, and free. You know, and I can't go against God's wants and God's will. I can't live in the negative. I can't have anger and all that other guilt and still be happy, joyous, and free. You know, and it says right here, it says, we cannot subscribe to a belief that this life is a vale of tears, though it once was that for many of us. But it is clear we made our own misery. God didn't do it. All that shit that I was putting myself through, God didn't do that. You know, avoid then the deliberate manufacture of misery. But if trouble, which is not misery, if trouble comes our way, we cheerfully capitalize on it. Capitalize on trouble. Cheerfully. That means I'm gonna capitalize on it with a smile. You know, we cheerfully capitalize on it to demonstrate His omnipotence. You know, and it doesn't say God's omnipotence. It gives you that option. You can choose whatever higher power you want, but we cheerfully capitalize on it to demonstrate His omnipotence. You know, and this program was explained to me, and it's a real simple program. You know, it used to be difficult. I was talking to my sponsee back there about I have had a copy of the original manuscript that you can buy at New York Central Office. And at the end of the ABCs in the original manuscript, it says, if you are not thoroughly convinced at this point that you are at step 3, reread the book or else throw it away. Because that means that you're not serious about the program of Alcoholics Anonymous. You know, it's been a blessing to come out here tonight. You know, I wouldn't trade this for anything. I'm glad that all of you showed up. You know, because I can remember. I remember the days when there was standing room only in this meeting room.
Yeah.
You know, and they'd have the tables all put up, and they'd have chairs lined up, and there'd be 60 or 70 or 80 people in here. But you know, I'm just thoroughly blessed that y'all showed up, and thank you for bringing the pizza, because yeah, that brought some of y'all in, I know. But I didn't show up for the pizza, I swear. I showed up for the cake. So with that, I'm going to get down from here, and we can close this meeting up.